So we've all seen the pink suit that RJ Barrett wore to the draft and the formal wear that he's been wearing for the tunnel walks and all the other events. Well, those are all Indochino suits and blazers. Indochino is the world's largest made-to-measure menswear brand. They make suits, shirts, coats, and more, and everything is made to your exact measurements for a great fit. Indochino's process is simple. You just choose your fabrics, you pick some customizations, and you give them your measurements, and it's all delivered right to your door in just 2 weeks. There's even Indochino showrooms out there, so you can get measured there, design your suit, make it all happen right on the fly. And right now, you can get $30 off of your total purchase of $399 or more at Indochino.com when entering Blue Wire at checkout. Plus, shipping is free. That's Indochino.com, promo code Blue Wire for $30 off your total purchase of $399 or more. An incredible deal for made-to-measure clothing. You really have no excuse anymore to wear clothing that doesn't fit.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia, this is... This is Houston, AOS, over.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Knicks Wall Podcast. Emergency edition. We have the whole crew here. Everybody sans David Fizdale. I've got Kyle Maggio with me, at Kyle Maggio on Twitter. My man, what's up?
What a day, what a day, what a day, huh?
What a day.
What a day, what a day.
Joining us, we have Mike Cortez at Cortezera on Twitter.
What's up, man? Got some blood on the streets.
Oh, it's quite a day for us. We're not stopping there. We've got the one and only Bryan Gibberman, at Bryan Gibberman on Twitter. Yo, what's going on?
Do you know what it's time for, guys?
What is the time? Tell us what the time is. I could have just added that shit in post.
No, it goes live.
That's fair. No, save me the effort.
Shit.
It's Friday. I don't want to do that. Well, we're here. We've gathered today. I guess we still have to do ad reads on this one, but we'll deal with that later. We're part of the Blue Wire Podcast family. Go follow everything we do at theknickswall.com, at TKW Podcast on Twitter, at the Knicks Wall on Twitter. Get in on all that shit. Subscribe to us, YouTube, Apple, whatever podcasting you use, all that stuff. We got the meat to get to in this one. If for all of us listening, for all of us on the call right now, if you have a beer near you, just raise it high and cheers with me right now. And any beverage, because David Fizdale is fired. The Knicks have this week suffered both a 44-point loss to the Milwaukee Bucks, and then follow that up with a 36-point loss to the Denver Nuggets. The team has looked non-competitive for weeks. They're in the midst of a 8-game losing streak. Nobody seems to be giving much effort. Brian just told us all that RJ Barrett liked the tweet about David Fizdale getting fired. There's a lot going on out there right now. So I guess we're gonna start here with our friend Kyle Maggio. Where's your mind stand right now? David Fizdale's gone. Mike Miller is the interim coach right now. David Fizdale leaves us with a .202 record, going 21-83 and his season and a quarter with the Knicks. Paid out until 2022, by the way. But Kyle Maggio, tell us where your mind is at right now after the loss of David Fizdale.
So, I would like to start this off by saying that before we get into the shit kicking of David Fizdale, and
take that for data.
Take that for data. Most of it, I do want to start off by saying that I was a big proponent of hiring Fizdale. I stand by it. A lot of what we discussed after the hire seemed to make sense for what the Knicks needed to do to actually be a modern NBA team in 2019 based on what he did with the Grizzlies. But I feel like I've used that point so many times and it doesn't mean anything because he didn't do any of that in New York. So I'm disappointed. I really did like David Fizdale. I had high hopes for him being here and coaching the team. Not like he was going to be the guy to turn everything around per se, but like I just thought like we had a good, competent head coach, like just slightly better than Jeff Hornacek, just the guy who was going to be able to develop some of the kids. Didn't work out that way. It sucks. It sucks. I thought we were going to have a fast-paced offense. We had a roster which doesn't make much sense, but if you play them fast, maybe they could a little bit. It gives them a chance anyway. It just seemed like he just didn't get it. You know, we had a lot of these concerns last season. I know Brian was screaming up and down about Fizdale and Moutier and some of the things that he was doing last year. And, you know, I think we all agreed more or less, but we also kept going, well, this team is historically bad. We all know it. It's a barren roster. Let's kind of give him a pass and see what he does with a somewhat competent team next year. And then we got the somewhat competent team, and it's a clunky fit, but it is a more talented team, no question. And it is the coach's responsibility after getting the roster, no matter how good or bad it is, to figure out the optimal ways to use it. And he did not. And that's the end of the story. Like, you got a young roster with a ton of new guys on it, and all he had to do was be better than a 17-win team. And they are on pace to win 15 games. So this is the grave that he dug himself a little bit. And this is how we got it. It sucks. It sucks. When you get a new front office and a new coach, you always want to believe in them and hope things are going to be a little different. But as it often isn't here, and especially this time, it just didn't work out. I mean, I'm not happy.
No, it certainly.
I'm not.
Yeah,
like I'm happy. I'm happy. Like, he was making a lot of mistakes, and we're gonna start getting into him now with Brian and Mike and everything. But like, I'm not happy about it. Like, a lot of people are happy. Like, Mike Miller, while I would love to see what he's got, and I think he's a very competent candidate and definitely deserves a chance to show what he could do at this level. He had a successful run with the Westchester Knicks, the Knicks G League affiliate team. From what I've seen and from the games that I've watched and looking at some of the stats, his offense isn't really all that much, worlds apart different from what Fizdale was doing. It's a little less ISO, but it's not really a fast-paced offense by any means. I wonder if that's just the G League and the personnel that he had, or, I don't want to put too much stock into it. I just want to kind of forewarn everyone before we get ahead of ourselves and think that there's going to be a drastic difference. But I'd like to see what he has. Usually after these firings happen midseason, the team plays with a little bit of energy and they show like they care a little bit, and some new lineups and things are tried out. So I'm not excited in general per se, but I'm excited for the next 3 or 4 games, if that matters to anybody or means anything.
Well, let's. I want to hear what Mike has to say after this from here. I want to hear from Brian last on this subject. After he started firing off some air horns, I feel like you've got some takes pent up in there. Yeah, there they go again. Those are the air horns. Those are them right there. Look at, yep, we're listening again. And now over to Mike. So I mean, you're a little bit familiar with Mike Miller. I know you've seen a little bit of his play in Westchester. I mean, even beyond that, just kind of tell me where you're at now with Fizdale, being gone just over 100 games into his tenure, really, with the Knicks. A lot of expectations went unfulfilled. I feel like Mike Miller's got a lot to go on for the rest of the season. He's kind of got a lot to prove for the rest of the season. So, if he wants to even be considered for this job at the end of the year, but kind of, I guess, where do you think this team is going to, what do you think the team's going to look like for the rest of the year? Where do you think they go from here? And just, do you think that this was the right move for the team?
Definitely the right move, but it's one move of many that have to happen from here on out. For example, I would get rid of Julius Randle if possible. Definitely get rid of Marcus Morris. And then if Miller's going to coach, just give him the kids to coach. I think the problem with Fizdale is he accommodated the veterans, and I don't know if that ties into whether he thought he had to win games and didn't think the young guys were ready, or he just simply wanted to play the veterans. That has to change. The young guys have to play. Mitch has to start. He's their second best player, probably their first most talented player. He has to be developed at all costs. And I'm looking at the schedule ahead. Nothing's going to change. We have Indiana Saturday, Portland, Golden State is kind of winnable, and then you have Sacramento and Denver again. They're still going to suck. This roster still stinks. But like I said, Fizdale didn't do much to stay. And I actually look back to when he was fired in Memphis. Some of the same issues happened in Memphis where he benched Marc Gasol without telling him. We saw that a lot with Knox recently. So just like small problems like that, I'd rather just get myself away from that. And hopefully they clean house at the end of the season, give somebody a massive deal, complete control, and let them pick a real coach, because in-house is just not working.
Yeah, I mean, that seemed to be one of the biggest issues that plagued the team through this year and, at parts of last year too. But certainly, like, pretty much since the beginning of the season, is that, there was no consistency. Nobody seemed to be on the same page. Nobody knew when David Fizdale was going to be benching them, or, what starting lineup he was going to be rolling out. There didn't really seem to be too much of a rhyme or a reason to it. So let's kick it over to our friend Bryan Gibberman. It's been a little bit since we've heard you on the pod. So I know that you've been a big proponent of the Fizdale firing for a while. You brought air horns to the night. I appreciate you.
We haven't heard the air horns, by the way. This is a TKW note. We haven't heard air horns since Enes Kanter.
Yes. This is the first time
was released from the Knicks. So I just want to note the significant. We don't just bring air horns into this podcast for any reason. And by we, I mean Bryan. And Bryan brought the air horns for the Fizdale firing. Continue.
Yeah. So Bryan, I guess, why were you so high on Fizdale being given the axe? And I guess, what do you think the next steps are from here for this team to kind of look competent? Who do you think should be taking the court more than anybody? Do you think that Mike Miller is a viable candidate for the end of the year, or are we just going to have to completely clean out and start again?
On Mike Miller, really quickly, I don't have the slightest clue. I've never watched a single Westchester G League game. He has a very bland name, so I wanted him to be the coach. So that's my Mike Miller thoughts. On Fizdale, yes, the roster, everything Kyle said, very true. And just that there was ways around it. Like, I didn't watch the last 3 games. I stopped because I said I would not watch the team while Fizdale was the coach, because if I wanted to watch the same thing over and over again, I would watch the movie Groundhog Day and not Knicks best.
No, legit, that's what I compared this team to earlier today. Like, there is a tweet out there that was saying it. It's too easy of a comparison. That's just the same thing every day. So yeah.
And so, like, there were two lineup things that before the season started that you were like, all right, obviously these players should never step foot on the court together. One, out of the point guards, Alfred Payton and Dennis Smith Jr. can never play together. And literally the first time they were both, was that game the first time they were both active together since like the first week of the season, or maybe the entire season? They haven't been active together for more than 5 games this season. And he played them together in the first half of that game with Wayne Ellington and Damian Dotson on the bench, where one of them could have played point guard, shooting guard, with pick whoever you want. I would have picked Payton because of how bad Dennis has been this year. He hasn't earned the right to be on the court. So, and he did that right away. And then throughout the entire season, he has, on a semi-regular basis, played Bobby Portis, Julius Randle, and Marcus Morris together. That front line reminds me of when in 13-14, Woodson used to throw out Bargnani, Amari, and Melo together. It's a toss-up which of those two groups is worse fitting together. And that stuff was happening all the time. Say you were under, from the front office, you have to play Bobby Portis, you have to play Julius Randle. Like, there's no options. That is what you have to do. Even within that context, he could have done what he was doing better. Look, he did figure it out that, and I've said this for a while now, Taj Gibson, out of all the Knicks bigs, is the best one to play with Julius Randle. he was right. I had no problem with him starting Gibson and making sure Randall was playing with them because, as we've seen, Gibson can hit some threes and he spaces out, and there's a little bit of those two pieces are interchangeable on offense, so that it allows Randall to do. He can set screens in a way that he can't when Mitch is on the court with him. So pairing those two is fine. Say you have to start Marcus Morris still. All right, that's fine. So what do you do then to make the rotation kind of flow better? You take Marcus Morris out early. You bring in one of the guards. Then you let RJ play the 3. You have Dotson or Ellington, whoever you want to play the 2, and you do that. Then you bring back Morris with Mitch. Then you can find Mitch is getting into foul trouble and stuff, so you can find Portis a little bit of time with Gibson when you rotate back through. Like you have to play Randall. You don't have to play him 34 minutes. You could have gotten his minutes down to 25. You still could have you could have played Gibson 18. There was ways to make all these pairings work, even if you had to play all these players that shouldn't necessarily be playing. And he didn't do it at all. Like we've seen what Carlisle did with Dirk for years. We see smart teams. What Brett Brown does with Joel Embiid. You take out a player early, then you bring him back with the second unit, and it would have been so easy for him. You could have done it in any directions. Say you wanted to start Mitch, then you could have started Mitch, Randall, and Morris. Then you pull Randall early, then bring him back with Gibson. If you wanted to start Gibson, then you bring in Mitch. There were so many ways you could make this work. But to play Mitch and Marcus Morris to get barely no time together at the 5 and 4 while you are trying to win basketball games is just a fireable offense alone. And did nothing.
The staggering point is something that we talked about a lot in the summertime after all these signings were made. And obviously there was the whole Durant, Kyrie stuff that, and then they were able to sign the guys that they were able to sign. That's all, past history. But when we were saying that, and the jokes were kind of firing off about the, all the power forwards that we signed and everything like that, there was a belief amongst Knicks fans that some of these guys are interchangeable enough at different positions where they're going to be able to, we're going to be able to stagger them a little bit, and they're going to be able to, be able to coincide on the court a little bit together, and at least we'll be able to find different combinations that we'll be able to play well together and things like that. But we just really haven't had that, and Fizdale really didn't seem to make any kind of didn't really seem to put any kind of emphasis on making those guys all play together. He was more concerned about who was going to fill out the guard rotation and what he was doing about 1 through 3, really, than he was concerned about 4 or 5. But and there are issues at both areas, but really, 4 and 5 are some of the issues where we've been bleeding at the most. And with with Marcus Morris in the equation and everything, and what the start he's had to the season, you're kind of strung with him at one of those 3-4 positions right there, and then you got to kind of fill the rest out. You got RJ Barrett you have to develop. You have all these other young guys on the court you have to develop. So I guess that kind of takes me to when Fizdale was brought in, he was hired to be the developmental coach. He was hired after, Hornets' reign of trying to get them competitive. And, now the Knicks had Frank Ntilikina on the roster. They had Kristaps Porzingis on the roster. They, just drafted Kevin Knox. Really what they thought to be a pretty competent young team, ready to take a step forward that just needed some development. And David Fizdale was going to be the guy. He very clearly did not live up to those expectations. So, Kyle, why don't you take this next one? What do you think this team needs the most from their next head coach? Is it still all development? Do you think that they are looking for a fast track to competence, or the next head coach that gets hired here, whether it's during the season, whether it's after the season, it's very likely going to be around April. But what do you think they need to bring to the team and not just talk about bringing to the team?
I think Brian tweeted this earlier, and it's a sentiment that I know we've agreed on and shared, all of us that are on this pod right now. For the first time I'm not like trying to give anybody credit, especially not to James Dolan here, but there's no like pressure to win now. And by win now, I don't mean, deep playoff runs and titles and shit. I mean, like, what they were trying to do with the beginning of this decade, which was like 40 wins, 36, 54, 37, like, some semblance of mediocre basketball, like, the old Knicks way. There's no pressure to even do that. If there was, they would have rushed to sign a bunch of guys like Tobias this summer. Like, they didn't do that. So, not giving them credit for like avoiding maybe some small missteps they should have avoided in the to begin with. But what they should do is basically like there's no expectations coming into whoever's next. It's basically like, look, the young core is here. Like, my big issue is just having a young core doesn't mean you're rebuilding. Like, just having all your draft picks the next few years doesn't mean you're rebuilding. Like, you actually have to hit on those draft picks. Then you have to actually develop those draft picks. And developing doesn't just mean starting them or playing them. It means putting them in a position to succeed with an offensive or defensive system that complements those players and the other players on the roster. Those latter things that I listed are things that the Knicks don't do. Like, that's the issue. Like, everyone says, oh, we have the young core, we don't need to sign people. I don't give a shit if these kids sink. Like, if now we're going to find out. Hopefully there's a different system and we could figure it out. But they haven't been good, and they weren't good with Fizdale. We're going to find out if they're good with Mike Miller. But basically, there's no expectations for who's next is my point. So all you have to do is come in. You know how not to play the kids. You know how not to use this roster pretty much. There's a mountain of evidence for you to go off of the last 1.25 years here about what not to do with maybe some of the young kids or some of the vets on this team that are, here this season. So pretty much just like use them how they should be used. Like, that's my biggest thing. It shouldn't just be we're watching, like Brian said, 35 minutes of Julius Randle double teamed in the paint trying to force up shots. Like, I've always been a big Julius Randle guy. You can minimize his minutes and make him play more effective. A good coach would figure out a way to do that, even on a clunky roster. So pretty much there's nothing expectation wise. Just come in, like, establish an identity, establish a system of some kind on either side of the floor that is your identity, your backbone, and just start building something. Like, that's the expectation. Like, what is this team? Just having Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson and RJ Barrett on the roster is meaningless. What are you going to do with those guys? Especially an RJ Barrett and a Mitchell Robinson who actually have shown not just flashes, but that they belong in this league. Like, are you going to be able to maximize the upside of the potential in those guys? How are you going to do it? That's all this next person coming in, Mike Miller right now and whoever is next, if someone's hired after him, that's the only focus. Nobody should be trying to win 30 games and sneak into the playoffs. It's okay. This entire roster is kids. I have draft picks coming in the next 2 years. What am I doing to prepare for a young team? Is there a system in place? Can I get these kids up to speed? That's all that they should be worried about.
Yeah, I mean, like, I totally agree. Like, we need to. I feel like the words that were coming out of Mills and Perry's mouth, and then Fizdale was echoing, earlier in the season, and then even before that, was that the Knicks have a plan, they have a rebuild, they want to take the long approach to this kind of thing. And that storyline quickly went away, once the rumors of Durant or Kyrie Irving coming to sign here was going to be it. But to me, from the beginning, they never really committed to this long rebuild. They wanted to be rebuilt and ready to compete within 3 years, it seemed like to me. And they were going to try to fast track it the whole time. So, I mean, like, that's kind of the thing. Like, the Knicks didn't have great expectations for the season at any point. Like, it was, they had 20 win expectations pretty much up and down the board. For them to reach 30 was kind of looked at as would, require a great outlier. And, obviously David Fizdale is not going to be the coach to reach, to get the team to reach there. The team is 4-18 right now. With a 30-win season looking pretty far out on the, not really on the horizon, but just kind of like in our imaginations at this point. So, I get like, it's kind of interesting to kind of think about where we go from here. Like, you don't really expect a coach to be fired within 30 games of the first year of like your best draft pick in a long time with RJ Barrett. and like you guys really got to start prioritizing these guys' development. So, I think we can move on from the coach necessarily at this point. We can go on to the front office now before we kind of wrap things up. But
turn me up.
Yeah.
I was told that there was a brand new culture, Anthony.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was told too. I heard all this thing that the Knicks were trying to establish a culture. They wanted to get the right kind of guys in here. There was even talk of a dog mentality at some point recently.
Protect the garden. Brian, where's the air horns? All right, we don't have the air horns.
Hold on, Brian's on mute. Let me get him back. There he is. Brian, I don't know if you've been trying to talk. I had you on mute for a second, but
listen,
check Slack, buddy. But the next thing we should probably talk about here is the front office. So Steve Mills, Scott Perry are doing we all believed in him, or we've all believed in them, but they've done, so far what appears to be an abysmal job of running this team. I guess culture, as Kyle brings up, needs to change. It needs to change again. It's changed for the last, 6 years of this rebuild that we've been in right now. So I guess Brian and Mike, you guys can kind of tag team this, hop in wherever you guys see fit. But what has to happen for the culture to change? Who do you think from the front office has to be held accountable for their coach not working out? Is it entirely the front office point at all at this point, or is it just are they deserving of the blame in this situation? Are they deserving of the blame for the on-court product not working out? Are they deserving of Fizdale not working out? Like, what steps do we have to take from here to ensure that the next coach we get is going to be one that's going to last for a couple of years at least?
Steve Mills has to go. That's number one. He's been the only one here since 2012, 2013. Since then, only all three coaches, Hornacek, Fisher, and now Fizdale, haven't seen a third season. That's a problem. So I think they're just doing a poor job of either communicating what exactly they're looking for or what they're trying to pitch to the public. Because before the season, they're like, this is a team we expect to compete. And everyone said the roster sucked since day one, and they've been proven right. So if everyone's saying the same thing and you think they're crazy, I think you're the one that's crazy.
I tried to take a look earlier this season or earlier today about how many coaches they have on the payroll right now, and surprisingly, it's just Fizdale.
No, I think they still owe Hornacek. No,
well, Hornacek expired at the end of last season.
Okay,
Hornacek was on a 3-year contract, which also coincided with the end of Derek Fisher's contract, because he was still getting paid all the way up until the end of last season. And also, if you want to consider the other head coach in that span, Kurt Rambis, though he was still getting an assistant's payday, he is being paid through the end of this season.
That's gross. See, that's just gross. Like just proves
exactly
no clear plan of what they want. And I really think I'll play devil's advocate here, but Fizdale came to coach Porzingis. He chose New York over Atlanta, Charlotte, and I think Phoenix, I want to say. One of those rebuilding teams. So he wanted to come to play Porzingis. It was Phoenix, right? Okay. So he wanted to coach one of those teams. I mean, he chose Porzingis over those teams. He never gets to coach Porzingis. Then he had to be told, hang in there, we're going to get Durant, because Dolan and the whole front office was very bullish on this summer. That doesn't happen. Either Fizdale just gave up or he was just sold the wrong plan.
I'm always torn on what you just said with Fizdale, because on one hand, the Grizzlies era, on the other hand, what we've seen.
Oh, he hasn't done nothing to stay around, but yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know what anybody expected with this roster. All summer, we were trying to warn people that this wasn't a great roster, and a lot of fans yelled at us that
wins is what I was expecting, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, listen, all of us, we all said more or less the same thing. We were around the same territory with our win predictions, and we all said, hey, if Fizdale is semi-competent, this team should be a fun-ish, fast, occasionally fun-ish, at least, sort of fast team. That was really it. We were 25, maybe 30 wins, absolute best case scenario, but most of us had 24 to 27. And we're just be regular bad. Don't be historical bad. Just be regular bad. Give us a couple good big wins, but nothing. And we were sold this new culture, like at media day, Fizz and Perry, and they're doubling down on the roster. These are good vets, dogs on the roster. This is toughness. And you're worse than last year. And this, for me, stems back to the Porzingis trade. Like, they talked a big game after that. We're going to have space for these max free agents. We're going to have all this money. Like, we have these draft picks. Well, the Mavs look terrific, regardless of how much we want to shit on how KP has struggled at the beginning of the season. They look good and increasingly getting better, mostly due to Luka. It doesn't matter what you think of KP, because as long as Luka is good and the Mavs are good, our picks are bad from them. Like, it's very simple. And I don't think they're going to be good at any point, the picks that we have. So the picks are going to stink. We blew the cap space. We're not signing anybody this next summer either, right? So that's 2 years of wasted cap space from the KP trade that we opened up. We had to give him away to clear the Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee salaries that were blocking the books for this summer and next, right? And we're not going to capitalize on any. So that was it. So what do we have? Dennis Smith Jr., who I'm high on, who has looked terrible this season, right? So what did we get from the KP trade? Nothing.
Hot air.
We got nothing. Hot air, right? But guys, at least he didn't want to be here, right?
No, I don't believe that.
He didn't want to be here. So that's much better, of course, is to just hastily get him out of town versus forcing him to sign a contract that would have recouped an asset, a big one with high upside, regardless of the injury woes. But anyway, so it was all for nothing, is my point. And big, new culture, all these changes, things are going to turn around, and barely a year later, here we are yet again talking about the same old shit. Like you said, it's Groundhog's Day. Like,
we're not even close to a year out.
Mills is the problem, right? Mills and Dolan are the problem. Mills and Dolan gotta go. Dolan gotta go.
Perry is a problem too. This is the third straight organization he has been with in the Magic, Kings, and Knicks that had not the slightest clue how to construct a roster and find complementing skill sets.
It just seems directionless. Like, they knew how to start the rebuild, but I don't think they had any idea for what the goal needs to be.
I feel like Perry's just living off of selecting Mitchell Robinson at this point. Everything else has been okay to bad.
Yeah, like he did. This is a point.
I'm talking about New York only.
Yeah, but this was a point I brought up on Twitter, and people got mad at me this summer. I was like, look, there's some players I don't mind that the Knicks signed, but when you look at it all as a whole, it's very reminiscent of when the Kings, which this was what Scott Perry did, signed Zebo, George Hill, and Vince Carter and added it to a young core. Then Dave Yeager basically had to play two different teams, the young kids and the old kids, with two completely different systems in place, one playing fast, one playing slow. And it just never meshed, and it didn't work until the season after, when they basically just sent Zebo away and paid him not to play. And then they got better. And that's basically exactly like it's a carbon copy to what happened with the Knicks this year. So I don't think Scott Perry has any idea how to build a functioning basketball team. Mills has to go. Perry has to go. Like it needs a complete restart.
Yeah, and I've talked a lot in this pod, and I won't apologize because I've been angry about this stuff for a while. The Perry thing is an excellent point. The only reason I left them off of the Mills and Dolan thing is because, if we're going to do the full cleaning of the house, like, the high priority targets are what they are. Dolan's never going to leave, and I doubt Mills is going to walk. It keeps getting rumored now, but I'll believe it when I see it, because that man is made of Teflon, evidently. But Perry stinks, man. Like, the Mitchell Robinson thing was fun. I will give him credit for the facilitating the Carmelo trade, getting that second round pick and converting it to Mitchell Robinson. I will, even though Mitch has not been that good this season, if we're keeping it a buck, as much as we all love him and think he'll turn it around. Just tough start. But again, grain of salt with the start as a whole. But Perry hasn't been good. And this is kind of what I was concerned about, was like,
but
Knox stunk, right? I mean,
to a degree so far. I think there's still redeemable things about Kevin Knox, but like Scott Perry has some sort of a record. It might be mixed. He doesn't have a ton of experience as a manager or anything like that. But
Perry has hasn't been on a team with a winning season in his entire career as a GM. That's Kevin, the dude from the New York Times, tweeted that out today.
But my point is
terrible.
my point is, what has Steve Mills done other than pioneer shit Knicks
He
teams
sucks.
for a
No,
decade?
he's awful. And just one more. Oh, go ahead.
I do think that Perry. I ultimately this summer. I feel like they both got to be gone. I'm not trying to dismiss Perry of any blame here, but to me, the biggest part of the problem starts with Steve Mills. To me, if I want a target number one, I got to focus on here at Steve Mills, because I just think that he has no idea what he's doing. The guy comes from a completely business background. He doesn't know basketball. He clearly doesn't know basketball.
That's not true. He has a basketball background. He played basketball at Princeton. He's boys with Pete Carell. There is basketball in his history.
Okay, that's fair. But I still do think that he's gotten most of his professional experience through, Madison Square Garden's other affairs, and then also just kind of having the hand of Dolan, I really don't like buying into the whole Dolan's plan thing, and I'm trying not to hype up too much the Dolan's cronies kind of thing or anything like that, but he's really at the point where it's clearly we keep putting the wrong people in charge of this thing, and then we keep on trying to tread out new people and then saying that they know what they're doing, and we just it seems like the accountability is so low, and they just seem so eager to keep repeating the cycle over and over again.
I have never seen a professional franchise care less about the fans that it tends to than the New York Knicks.
Because it still sells.
From top to bottom, from the product they put out, from the care that they put into anything, from the front office to the coaching staff to the players, to the social media team, the marketing team, the fan events, the giveaways, the general, warmness of when you enter the they don't care. They're here's an XL white generic printed t-shirt that nobody asked for or wants. That's our fun giveaway that we give you once a month, once every 2 months. You know what I mean? It's they don't care. The social media team is trash. They don't even tweet scores on the post game tweets anymore. It's just tough one. See you in India on
Tweet
Saturday.
the score.
Pictures next.
Content.
Well, that's what's really egregious, Mike.
From top to bottom, we just get the worst product, and here we are on our Friday night at 9 p.m. discussing.
They won't
this
even.
Is what they do to us. This is brutal.
They won't even post the score. Is really the
It's
biggest
so
thing.
sad.
I mean, what was the shit that they posted earlier today? They posted
Indiana or some stupid shit.
They posted some Spotify playlist they tried to make seem like they're still really peddling this whole narrative of and I get it. Listen, I work in marketing. You have to try to sell the thing that you're being paid to try to sell. But at a certain point, it's all been bullshit lately. We have a lot of grievances we're obviously going to be exploring throughout the rest of the season. There's still many games left to go. We're not even close to halfway through the season yet. This is kind of wild. But let's kind of get back onto the team itself and away from the front office. Let's turn our attention a little bit more towards where we think the team goes from here. I guess we're going to end this out in just a couple of minutes. But before we do that, just kind of give me I guess let's just kind of go around. Just give me a prediction for how you think the rest of this month is going to go into January to the trade deadline. I guess the next 2.5 months or so for the Knicks. Do you think they're going to be able to put together any kind of run under Mike Malone?
No,
do you think some
no.
guys are going to be gone sooner than later?
Of course not. What are we doing here? Of course
Still gonna
not.
suck.
Of course not.
Kyle, your disgust there was the best.
What the fuck are you asking me, Anthony?
I mean, do you know how hard it is to try to run a podcast about this team, man?
I do. I'm not even faulting you. I'm just faulting the words coming out of your mouth. The intent is pure, but the words, they cut to my core, Anthony.
I know. We do it for the fans.
Okay, my expectation is for them to not allow the opponent to shoot 18 million wide open threes a game. And if another person uses the Bucks as an example to defend what David Fizdale did. The Bucks take 40 fucking threes a game. Do you not understand the difference?
They also have Giannis.
They have room to allow other teams to shoot threes because they are always attempting more. The most important thing about three-point defense is not the percentage. It's the amount of threes you allow the team to take. You always want to make sure you take more threes than you allow the opponents to take. And there can't be many games this season where that actually happened for the Knicks. Truly atrocious. That's all I want to see. That's not going to happen. The rest of this season is them to not just play, we have to protect the rim. Leverage Mitch's ability to protect the rim and close off the three-point line. That's the improvement I want to see for the rest of the season.
Don't get blown out by 40 points a game. Right. That's the bar is hell.
Mike, do you have anything else you want to get off here?
Major shout out to Keith Smart, Jerome Smart. I don't know what the hell your name is. What the hell were you doing with Dennis Smith all summer? His shot still sucks.
Nothing. He looks worse. How did you make him look worse?
What are you doing down there?
You had one job all summer.
So pretty much all summer.
Fix that child's jump shot.
The only thing he did was get him to stop going to fucking Bojangles. That's all Smart does.
You've seen his little backfire. Yeah. Put him back on the fast food.
Yeah. I just don't get, what were you doing? God.
He's a North Carolina boy. You got to keep him on the fast food, man.
He quit Bojangles and the Waffle House, had a career worst year. Coincidence? I think not. Get that boy some fast food. Stop!
No, just get him out of the team, too.
Shooting on the way down still, right? Is that?
Yeah, it's that, and he just, he'll just stop at the top of his release. Just stop. It's what are you doing?
Yeah.
Knicks development, baby.
Yeah, well, we're gonna. I am sure we're going to be talking a lot more about the Knicks development in the next couple of weeks, and especially Dennis Smith Jr. with the trade deadline approaching. It's getting near. We still have some time until then. We have some time for some of these guys to get their value up. We have expiring contracts. There are things that yet to be seen. The drama is not over for this Knicks season, and honest to God, this is kind of what I was waiting for. I need something to make this shit entertaining, so...
Yes!
So you guys can go ahead and... I guess I should probably do an ad read before I get us out of here, shouldn't I?
Before you do that,
yeah.
Make sure you're following the Knicks Wall on all platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you would like to follow us or search us. We're probably there. We're also on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. If you didn't and probably don't want to buy some merchandise after this last couple of weeks, I wouldn't blame you, but we have some lovely TKW Christmas sweaters in the TKW shop with our wonderful vendor, Design Tree. Shout out to Design Tree. Go buy some. We have St. Neil Aquina. We have Merry Mitchmas. We have the TKW Ugly Christmas Sweater, which doesn't have as fun a name, but it is delightful nonetheless. So go take a look. In addition to all of our jerseys for the young Knicks fan in your life, who you are grooming for a lifelong trip of misery. So if you want to get any of those things for yourself to self-loathe or for others to help them, commiserate with you, go ahead and visit the shop. If not, please, at least for manning this out with us, this emergency podcast, give us a 5-star review. Leave us something nice. I think this was enjoyable. And I'll let Anthony take it away.
Follow us all on Twitter. Head to knickswall.com. All that good stuff. Let me tell you all about ShipStation. With the holiday rush here, you have to be able to ship those orders out quickly, efficiently, and affordably. But how do you keep track of all those orders, decide which shipping carrier to use, or if you're getting the best rates? Luckily, ShipStation can help. With just a few clicks, you'll be managing orders, printing labels, and getting those products out the door and delivered in time for the holidays. I have used ShipStation with a couple of websites I've managed before in the past, and I can promise you it is the number one choice of online sellers like me. You'll ship more in less time with the best rates available. Take the hassle out of holiday shipping this year. Let ShipStation help you handle it all with ease. Just use the offer code BLUE to get 60-day free trial. That's 2 months free of no hassle, stress-free holiday shipping. Just visit ShipStation.com, click on the microphone at the top of the page, and type in BLUE. That's ShipStation.com. Enter promo code BLUE. ShipStation. Make ship happen. And the last thing I'm going to tell you guys about before we get out of here is Harry's. Harry's is a great gift for any of the men or the women in your life. A lot of razors get dull. They get kind of get worn down really easily. I'm Italian. I'm Puerto Rican. I have a lot of facial hair, and I tend to get one use out of a razor most of the time. But Harry's is trying to change all that, and listeners of this show can get $5 off any Harry's shave set by heading to harrys.com/bluewire. The shipping ends on December 16th. The free shipping ends, that is. So you got to act now. Harry's is a great gift. It's a great deal for you. It's a great deal for him. It's it's got everything you kind of need. It's just $20 to get things started. That's right within your Secret Santa limit. So keep an eye on that. Blade refills are as low as $2 each. It comes in a really nice little holiday gift box for you, and 1% of each sale is going to get donated back to charities. So feel good about that. As a special offer for fans of the show, we partnered with Harry's to give you $5 off any shave set, including their limited edition holiday sets, when you go to harrys.com/bluewire. Plus, you'll get free shipping. Each Harry shaving set comes with a weighted handle with an option to engrave a $5 razor cartridge or a 5-blade razor cartridge, foaming shave gel for a nice rich lather, the travel cover to protect your blades, and it's all packaged in that nice gift box I mentioned. So, like I said, the free shipping ends on December 16th. So act now. Go to harrys.com/bluewire. That's harrys.com/bluewire. You guys have any last takes to get off before we head out of here?
Let's go Blazers. Stay mellow.
Stay mellow. I think that's the note we can end on here. So Mike and Kyle will be talking to you all on for your Monday morning commute. And I will be back next week. We will all talk to you very, very soon. Thanks for listening.